Jai Hind everyone. Welcome to my YouTube channel which is Explore Yourselves, Banking and General Knowledge, etc. Memoir of my banking journey by Mr. V.H. Ramakrishnan, retired General Manager of Bank of India. Episode number 27. The chapter Kenyan Safari is continuing. The link of earlier episodes is available in description. Picnics galore. As I have been repeatedly writing, Kenya is a beautiful small country, well connected by excellent roads. We decided to explore the country and visit as many places as possible. My wife and I used to drive ourselves by turn, and driving on those roads was a real pleasure. Victoria Lake. Miwani Sugar Mills was one of our big customers. Their plant was situated near to Lake Victoria, the second biggest lake in the world. It occupies about 68,000 square kilometers. It has a shoreline of more than 4,000 kilometers and touches three countries, Kenya, Uganda, and Tanzania. We were quite eager to see this huge lake. So when I had to go for an inspection of Miwani sugar mills, I decided to take my family. On a pleasant Saturday morning, a beautiful BMW car landed at my doorstep. The driver was in spotless uniform with a cap. When I greeted him, he also greeted me in Swahili. After we got into the car, I tried to pick up some conversation. I realized that the driver did not know a single word of English. It was a bit strange. He knew only Swahili. Anyway, we moved on. We would have covered one third of the distance. The car stopped suddenly. The driver went around the car, opened the bonnet, tried to do something, but the car would not start. I asked him about the problem. I could not understand what he said. Then, with various signs and Swahili words, he almost did a Bharatanatyam dance. Finally, he understood what he said. The car has a major problem. He cannot fix it. He would have to go by public transport to Nairobi and get a mechanic. It would take a long time. We should get a lift and go back to Nairobi. Saying this, he got into some truck and left for Nairobi. We were stranded on the road with our suitcase. We stood on the roadside and tried to ask for a lift. Many cars did not stop. Finally, one big car stopped, which had only one passenger, a rich Arab. He gave us a lift and dropped us home. After another 2 weeks, we again made another attempt. This time there was no problem. We reached Mioni sugar mills comfortably. In the evening, we went to the lake. It was an unforgettable sight. A huge lake which looked like an ocean. You could not see the other side. The only difference was that there were gentle waves. It was worth all the trouble. Surprisingly, there was no big crowd to see the lake. It was not developed as a tourist attraction. I do not know the position now. Mount Kenya Safari Club. This is one of the most luxurious resorts in the world. One of the founders of this club was the movie star William Holden. Winston Churchill was also a member of this club. It had more than 100 luxury rooms. Though it was an expensive place, we decided to go for one night stay. We reached the club around noon, had a panoramic view of Mount Kenya. There was a lush and green golf course. It was also close to Mount Kenya National Park and Aberdare National Park. The rooms were of superior quality. We felt as if we were entering the colonial era. The club had some strict rules. Kids should finish their dinner by 7:30 p.m. Adults should come after 8 p.m. You were not allowed to sit as one family. That was a disappointment. However, we were allowed to sit with our children when they had dinner. They had fresh, thick tomato soup, vegetable cutlets, etc. We were happy to taste the homemade ice cream. After dropping the children in the room, my wife and I had our dinner. Gentlemen must come in full suit. Quality of food was very good. I felt people who play golf, drink, and take non-veg would have enjoyed the stay better than us. Anyway, it was a different experience. Lake Nakuru, one of the beauties in Africa, is the famous Rift Valley. within an hour's drive from Nairobi. You can reach the Rift Valley. Lake Nakuru is located in the Rift Valley. We went for a picnic to Lake Nakuru. No picnic would be complete without my friend Maniar. Lake Nakuru is famous for thousands of flamingos which adorn the lake. It was a beautiful sight. To bring life into the picnic, Maniar would say every 15 minutes in a cheerful tone, "Maja abhi gayi, maja aayi gayi." Then, like school children, we should all say in chorus, "Bahut maja aayi gayi." Each family would bring one item, but look, and we enjoyed the scenery with mainly lovely Gujarati dishes. Hot water springs. Once someone told me about the hot water springs. I think it was Lake Bogoria. We decided to go and see the rare natural phenomena. We went alone. We followed the directions, but we found the road to be very rough and full of stones. My wife was driving the car. I felt we had lost the way. No other car was visible either before or behind us. Then all of a sudden we saw the lake. What a relief! There were a few cars. By sheer coincidence, we also saw our neighbor's daughter with her friends. As suggested by my friend, we had carried some potatoes with us. On the shoreline of the lake, there were small springs from which hot water was gushing out. We put the potatoes in a small cooking vessels and dipped it in the hot water spring. Within a few minutes, they were boiled. We had salt and pepper and had the potatoes for lunch. Equator. Once we were driving out of Nairobi, suddenly saw a board with something written in bold letters. We stopped the car. The board said, "You are standing on the equator." I knew that the equator passed through Kenya. Never imagined we could stand on the equator. Of course, it is an imaginary line. 14 Falls. This was one of our favorite picnic spots. We had visited this many number of times. It was near Thika, just an hour's drive. Excellent road. It was a pleasure to drive on this route. On the way, we could buy from the roadside fresh oranges, pineapples, etc. at cheap rates. In fact, it was one waterfall divided by rocks and falls as 14 different waterfalls. We could sit on small rocks and watch the waterfalls and have our food. Good natural scenery. Mombasa Beach Resort. We drove to Mombasa and stayed for about 2 or 3 nights at White Sands, a beach resort. I could see how the beach resort was developed with tourists, mainly Europeans, in mind. From the resort, you could just walk to the seashore of a private beach. Water was shallow. We could walk even 100 meters in the water. Practically no waves. Saw a lot of starfish. Let us get back from picnic to realities of life. Servant problem. I had mentioned earlier that we are quite happy with the servant. Then one day she did not turn up. No prior information. We managed for the day. Next day also she did not come. Then for almost a week there was no sign of her. So we recruited a new servant with the help of our neighbor. The day on which the new servant reported and finished her job, the old one turned up. She asked us how we could engage a new one when she was working for us. We told her that she did not inform us about her absence and how long could we wait. I offered her money for the period she had worked. She would not accept and said she would not go. She sat on the staircase for about an hour and then went away. The next Sunday, she turned up with a gentleman who claimed that he was an office bearer of the Union for the Domestic Servants. We had never known about such an institution. He was very polite. He sat before us and asked us as to why we terminated the services of the old servant. We explained. Then he asked her, "Did you inform the boss that you would be on leave?" She said no. Then he asked her, "Why did you absent yourselves for a week?" She replied that she was not well. Then he asked her whether she had a medical certificate from the doctor. She replied in the negative. Then he told us that it is her fault. However, she is a poor woman. Please give her 15 days extra wages and settle the matter. We agreed and the matter was over. I liked the way the union man dealt with the matter. When we moved into the manager's residence, Mr. Panachand Dedia recommended his services for us. He was a young boy. His father was with Dedia for over 25 years. But the boy, after some time, started behaving funnily and threw veiled threats of damaging the car. I told Dedia. He advised me to go to the police station and report the matter, then to come back and inform the servant that I had informed the police, and if anything happened to my car, he would be held by the police. I did exactly that. Thereafter, this boy took extra care to ensure that nothing happened to my car. Tell peace. One day morning, Officer Malkan came to me and told me that he was sending a messenger to the post office to get some tickets. He asked me whether I needed any tickets. I was confused. I told him that post offices do not sell tickets. Then he clarified that the tickets were to be posted on envelopes. I realized that in Gujarati, stamps are called tickets. Flats for expatriates. Knowingly or unknowingly, the bank management in Kenya had taken flats for the officers in different buildings in parklands and wastelands. No two officers were in the same building. At the same time, one can reach another officer within 10 minutes by car. I consider this as the best arrangement. This had resulted in good family relationship between officers. No unnecessary gossips, fights between children, etc. On the contrary, Bank of Baroda had pulled all its officers except the top two in the same building. We had heard stories of family fights, kids quarrels, etc. The chief executive had a big bungalow in sprawling grounds. He had a beautiful lawn in the front and a lot of vacant space behind the bungalow. The land was on a long lease. If my memory is right, all the land in Nairobi belonged to the government and was given on long leases, even for 100 years. Mr. Srop once mooted an idea to build flats for officers behind his house. We did not support the idea. We told him that the present system was the best one. I told him that he would lose his privacy. The officers would be watching who were his visitors, who was carrying gifts, etc. All this may result in avoidable gossip. Seeing our united oppositions, he did not pursue his plan. When I visited Nairobi in the late 90s as general manager, I found an interesting development. Apart from the CE and the manager, all the other officers were housed in the same building. I was having a meeting with the officers. I asked them as to how this had happened. They said they had voluntarily opted to stay in the same building. The advantage was that one of them would leave the car at home and the ladies would go for shopping together. They said they had no issues in staying together. Then I thought they could as well stay in bank's own building. I told Mr. P.R. Kallanasundram Kallan, who was the chief executive, to look into the possibility of building flats for the officers behind his bungalow. His own bungalow had also become quite old. Perhaps he could also build a new one. Kallan took this project very seriously and submitted a plan. We at HO approved it first. Luckily, our lease was also extended for a long period. That was how, if I remember right, two big flats in front of CE and the manager, and same some flats for officers behind these flats came up. It was a major achievement contributions of Kallan, a fine officer who rose to become a general manager. I am sure the officers are happy. I had also accepted the changed attitude of the officers and did not hesitate to reverse my stand. I feel executives should be ready to change their views based on the environment. I think Nairobi is the only foreign centers where all the officers stay in banks' own flats. A game, Nasty, played by a customer. Ramakant, name changed, was a very well respected customer by both local as well as expatriates. Maintained good relationships with everyone. Even he had called me home for lunch with other officers. I had moved out of Kenya and was in Lagos. A couple of months after I reported at Lagos, I got a call from Mr. Thakkar, who was continuing a C at Nairobi. He told me that Mr. Ramakant had been to Mumbai and had returned to Nairobi. While at Mumbai, Ramakant had called on Mr. R.P. Buddha, general manager. Ramakant was a good friend of Mr. Buddha. Ramakant informed Thakkar that Mr. Buddha had told him, quote, Ramakrishnan told me that Thakkar is slow in decision making and drags things. Thakkar told me that he could not believe that Ramakant told him. I was also shocked. I told Thakkar that I did meet Mr. Buddha, but he never discussed about him. Mr. Buddha was talking to me about the challenges in Nigeria. I thanked Thakkar for clarifying with me. I was restless. I telephoned Mr. Buddha and told him about Ramakant's allegations. Mr. Buddha told me that it was Mr. Ramakant who made adverse comments about Thakkar. Now he knew what happened. Ramakant wanted to convey to Thakkar his real opinion about him. He knew that I was out of Kenya. It was safe to involve my name. Ramakant did not imagine that Thakur would ask to talk to me. I called back Thakur and gave him the correct positions. Now that was a lesson I learned. Whenever someone tells you similar stories, please do not believe them. Best thing is to confront the person concerned and get the clarification. An officer and his attitude. It is not enough if you are brilliant in your work. Interpersonal relationship also counts a lot. Though I have a little pain narrating the following incidents, I thought I should do it mainly for the sake of young officers of Bank of India who can draw their own lessons. Ram Kumar, name changed, was a hard-working, brilliant officer. He had firm and sometimes rigid views. A staunch disciplinarian, he was somehow not happy with the level of discipline in the office. He used to tell me often that if only he had the power, he could reform the entire branch. It was difficult to advise him. In those days, an officer was posted first for 2 years. At the end of 2 years, head office should renew the term for another 2 years. It was more or less a formality. When Ramkumar was about to complete his term of 2 years, I was also about to complete 4 years. I was the manager of that branch. It was August 1983. My son was to complete his 10th standard in December 83, but he was to appear for London O level in March. I knew it would be difficult to get admissions in India with Kenyan O level. British O level was recognized by the good schools in India. So I wrote to head office for an extension of my term till March 84, and I promised to I would leave Nairobi on the day after my son's examinations was over. And I did that, though it was a big strain. Ramkumar wrote a letter to head office that he would like to continue for a second term, only if he was made as the manager of the branch. Head office did not accede to his request and transferred him back to India. At the same time, I was granted an extension. I had already mentioned that despite the extension, H relieved me in January 84 and I was forced to spend my home leave in Kenya itself. Now Ramkumar thought that HO favored me and was unfair to him. Ramkumar was to leave for India. I invited him and his family to my house for a farewell dinner. He agreed. I fixed the date in consultations with him. Then I invited a few friends and customers also. On the day of the dinner, Ramkumar came to my table and said, "You would not be able to come to my house for dinner." I was taken aback. I asked him what was the problem. As was his nature, he gave a straightforward answer: "I would not feel comfortable at your house." A shocking response. I did not argue. I told him that it was perfectly okay, but I did not cancel the dinner. I gave some excuse for his absence. People were decent enough not to probe further. Ramkumar's strict demeanor apparently did not go too well with the local staff, although they never expressed the same feeling during his tenure. On the day he was to be relieved from the branch, he shook hands of all the staffs, which they reciprocated smilingly, but they did not partake Coca-Cola, which was to be served as per the normal practice on such an occasions. It was their way of silently registering their protest. To be a disciplinarian is fine, but one should also be ready to be flexible when where one can. A request: if you have guessed the identity of the officer, please keep it to yourself. I do not want to embarrass anyone. Tailpiece. Akbar Ismail was our approved lawyer, very smart person, quite fast in giving opinion. When he was new in Nairobi, one day his assistant, a young and smart lady, came to deliver some papers. I told her to convey a message to her boss. She smiled and said she would do that. When she left, my assistant Mukiti came to me and told me, "Sir, she is not Akbar's assistant. She is his wife." It is time to say goodbye to Kenyan safari. Before I conclude, let me add a few tidbits. Kalasing. In those days, even though housebreaking was common, the local thieves would never dare to break into a house of Sardarji. They were scared of Sardarjis, whom they called Kalasing. The new Sardarjis would not be afraid to fight and they would carefully avoid them. Garba dances. I always remember the first Navaratri I spent in Nairobi. Garba dances were held in various venues. All the traditional music and steps, no dungi dance type, young or old, male or female, all participated with a lot of enthusiasm. Our friends took us from one venue to the other from 8 p.m. till midnight. I do not know whether things have changed now. I used to feel that the modern trend did not affect many of the Gujarati families. There were elderly ladies of Jain community who used to finish of their dinner before sunset. Bomas of Kenya. This was a cultural center in Nairobi where one could see the arts and crafts of Kenyan tribes. They also used to have 2 or 3 shows of a cultural program where you could witness various tribal dances with music. Harambe. This Swahili word meant let us work together. Harambe meetings were conducted by the president. The main aim was fundraising for a project. The president may visit a town or hold a Harambe meeting. Then the audiences would respond to the call of the president for raising money. Each one would hand over cash. The president would read or mention the names of the persons one by one. Millions would be collected on the spot. Local officers, I remember. I had mentioned a few names in the course of my narrations, but I did not get an opportunity to mention about Martin. Martin was a very honest and straightforward officer, a calm and quiet person. Through with the routine work, he was the first officer to be sent to India for a training. But the food did not suit him, and he came back as a sick person. It took quite some time for him to recover. I had briefly mentioned about the local officer's Trivedi. He knew each and every Gujarati customer. He was like a fixed asset of the branch. Visit of Usa Uttup. Usa Uttup, the famous singer, visited Nairobi during our stay. She was singing in a nightclub. Unfortunately, someone tried to stab her when she was coming out after the program. It made big headlines. She escaped with minor injuries. My successor. My successor arrived quite early. There were certain assignments which had to be directly handled by the manager. Whenever I tried to explain to him about such work, I found that he was not much interested. He would again and again ask only about the parks which the manager was entitled to. He would have asked this question at least once in a day. It was rumored that he was selected mainly because of his good accent of English. My departure. I had already mentioned about the problems I faced like home leave, which I had to waste in Nairobi, etc., in my Nigerian experiences. So I am skipping all that portion. I have to mention about the packing modes. Since I had received the postings orders in to Lagos, I had to pack my things into 3 categories. One set to go to Chennai, another to go to Lagos, and third luggage to be taken with us to Chennai. It was quite an effort to convince head office to pay the freight charges for 2 different destinations. Things to be sent to Nigeria was to be kept with the transport people for almost 3 months. Luckily, there was no damage. At Chennai, when I got the notice that my goods had arrived, my wife and I went to the cargo section. We reached at 10 a.m. and it was 4 p.m. by the time we could get out. We had to go through 22 stages before clearing the items. I got so much annoyed that I wrote a letter to the collector of customs giving a graphic description of my experience listing out the 22 stages. I also knew that the collector was the younger brother of late Mr. M. Krishnans, officers of Bank of India. Though he did not acknowledge, I later learned that the procedure was simplified. Epilogue. I always ask myself whether I had covered everything. The answer is no. Being a banker, one cannot reveal everything, in spite of the fact that so many years had lapsed. I could not write about the crisis faced by both the Indian banks, which they overcame with a lot of determinations, with reputations intact. I had heard that when CP Shah was the chairman, he visited Nairobi and stayed there for 15 days. It was a record. Mr. Shah came to our bank from Bank of Baroda. He had opened the branch of Bank of Baroda in Nairobi and knew many businessmen. So he decided to spend 2 weeks there. There was one Mr. Patel, I think NG Patel, who was the chief executive. He had to arrange breakfast, lunch, and dinner for the chairman all 15 days. Taking care of chairman for 2 weeks led to a nervous breakdown for the officers. How far this was correct, I do not know. Though the bank has always posting only Gujarati judge managers, this practice was given up for want of eligible officers as well as due to changes in selection procedure. In later years, when one CMD visited Kenya and came back, he told me that the officers met him in 2 groups, one from south and another from another non-south. Each complained about the other group. I was shocked to hear about such developments. Perhaps this is the price you have to pay when you grow very fast. Anyway, it was only a passing phase. When I visited Kenya in the late 90s, I found no such discard. I was happy to see all working as a family. When I left Nairobi, we had only two branches. One in Kisumu was closed even before I landed in Nairobi. Now I understand there are six branches, including Kisumu. I am happy this gives opportunity to many officers to go abroad. Though the bank was always posting only Gujarati judge managers. Oh, sorry. I had seen that when an officer is selected for overseas posting, he always dreams of going to New York, London, Tokyo, etc. Never thinks of Africa. So when this is posted to Africa, he feels disheartened. He thinks he has got a second rate posting. I used to advise the officers when I was in service, and even now, that they should be happy about going to Africa. I give below the regions at least from first-hand knowledge of Kenya, Nigeria, and Zambia. Compared to New York, London, etc., there is less stress in working in Kenya, at least during my tenure. We never sat late except on very few occasions. Quality of life is very good. In fact, one should be happy about the servant help you get in Africa. One servant does the job of servant, dhobi, soup police, boy, cook, and housekeeper. This is a luxury you cannot get in any developed country. The ladies get a lot of leisure time to go for shopping, social religious activities, etc. If I am right, in Kenya, every officer is provided with a car, not in US or UK. With the appointment of a government appointed subcommittee, the remuneration has also become very attractive. I think school fees and taxes are reimbursed, which was not there in our time. The scope for sightseeing is much more in Africa. I know many officers in New York used to go to only three places: Washington, Niagara Falls, and Disney World in Florida during a tenure of 4 years. I know our representative at San Francisco was not allowed to officially visit New York even once during his 4 year term. You should always go with your family, then only you will enjoy your stay. I was lucky to visit Kenya three times during my tenure as general manager during the tenures of CS Srinivasa Rao, E. Sannal, and P. A. Kallana. Every time I felt it was like homecoming. Tell peace. When I was leaving Nairobi, many customers told me that I was leaving at the right time as things had deteriorated. These were the same customers who told me on my arrival that I had came at the wrong time as things they were very bad. I would summarize my Kenyan stay in just one sentence. I enjoyed my stay thoroughly. The chapter Kenyan safari is complete, and next chapter is my experience as a branch manager. Thank you very much for your patience. Request to like, subscribe, and share.